2023 might be the year that many video game franchises come back from the dead. Whether forgotten by time or simply stuck on a long hiatus, the following IPs haven't seen the light of day in quite some time, but now that's all about to change. I'm Sai for WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 video game franchises making huge comebacks in 2023. Number 10, Payday 3. Payday 3 has been in the works for quite some time now, but due to the financial troubles of its developer Overkill Software, and much to the dismay of its fans, its release keeps getting delayed. The co-op heist game was a huge success back in 2013, and with consistent updates it managed to maintain its relevance long after release. However, since then, the competition in the co-op first-person shooter genre has become quite fierce, and Payday 2, with its decade-old mechanics, is due a sequel. Though the game has been passing from one company to another in the last few years, Payday 3 has the chance to make a huge comeback and revitalise people's interest in the franchise. If it manages to find its own place amongst the modern shooters and co-op games, its unique heist setting will make it stay relevant for another few years. And the devs getting rid of controversial microtransactions that caused quite the bother in the second game should also help with reaching this goal. Number 9, Cities Skylines 2. The recent trailer for the sequel to Cities Skylines feels perfectly timed as a re-entry point for those wanting to get behind the desk and become the fictional mayor of a fictional town. Despite the base game often being on sale, Cities Skylines' years worth of DLCs have caused a lot of new players to not necessarily give the game a fair shot, especially since all of the mechanics introduced in each DLC are quite intimidating to learn all at once. Furthermore, some of the game's systems feel quite outdated nowadays, and most people can't stand playing the game without downloading a long list of mods. The sequel has the potential to address both of these issues by making the game more accessible to new players while simultaneously refurbishing the antiquated mechanics to appeal to the old fans. Should this be the case, Cities Skylines has the potential to become the definitive title within the city builder genre yet again. Number 8, Baldur's Gate 3. Baldur's Gate 3 has been in early access for a few years now, but this year it's finally going to be released as a full title. This means a proper return of the Baldur's Gate series after more than 2 decades. Naturally, with such a huge time gap between releases, Baldur's Gate 3 feels radically different from its predecessors. However, although the old systems have been thoroughly refined to fit better with the modern standard of gaming, the new Baldur's Gate still does a great job of capturing the feeling of an emulated tabletop RPG. For this reason, the game's release is not only a big comeback for the series itself, but also for the classic role-playing experience. It's been quite a while since games like Baldur's Gate have been relevant in the mainstream gaming culture, so the third title, with its new take on the genre, offers a way to make the old mechanics more accessible and, in the long term, popularise a classic RPG format. Number 7, Assassin's Creed Mirage. Unlike some other entries on this list, the Assassin's Creed series hasn't really been lost to time. The franchise keeps releasing new titles on a regular basis and still has a dedicated fan base that holds it in high regard. However, one can't deny that since the release of Assassin's Creed 4, the series' popularity has been somewhat declining. The new combat system, among many other features introduced in the recent titles, has caused the general audience to lose interest in the world of Assassins, but Ubisoft's newest project, Assassin's Creed Mirage, might just be the thing to lure them back in. According to interviews with Ubisoft developers regarding the upcoming release, Mirage is a return to the classic format of Assassin's Creed. It's focused on stealth and taking down bad guys with swift and clever executions, as opposed to slowly chopping away at massive health bars. Whether Ubisoft delivers on this promise or not remains to be seen, but their project has already caused quite the buzz within the fanbase of the series. Number 6, Alan Wake 2. According to Remedy Entertainment's legendary writer Sam Lake, Alan Wake was written by himself with a clear sequel in mind. The studio even started working on it shortly after the release of the original, but it was all done behind the scenes whilst they developed other titles. Even with teases and references in games like Quantum Break and Control, Alan Wake's fans were quite shocked to see the trailer for the new game last year. With more than a decade spent in Remedy's workshop, Alan Wake 2 is easily one of the most anticipated titles of 2023, as well as an intriguing mystery that makes people wonder what could possibly have taken the developers so long. From what little Sam Lake has revealed about the sequel, the game is going to change its focus from being an action game with horror elements to a straight-up survival horror. What this could mean exactly is still not certain, but judging by the trailer alone, the second Alan Wake stays very faithful to the unique atmosphere of the first. Number 5. The Wolf Among Us 2. Telltale's decline and eventual bankruptcy was a real rough situation that led to one of the worst cliffhangers in gaming history. The final scene of The Wolf Among Us teased a clear continuation of Bigby Wolf's story in a sequel, but we never got to see it due to Telltale succumbing to its financial troubles. And then, surprisingly, ex-Telltale employees announced they were going to return to their old projects, including The Wolf Among Us 2. The game is to be released within a year from now, and naturally a lot of people are excited about it. If the devs can pull it off properly, this could mean a huge comeback for Telltale's unique style of storytelling. However, although the original Wolf Among Us was a massive hit, the sequel will likely have to do more than just ride the popularity of its progenitor if it wants to compete with modern-day contemporaries. Regardless of whether the Wolf Among Us 2 sells or becomes a massive flop, the fact that people still care about the franchise after all these years shows that this release has been a long time coming. Number 4. Ark 2. Ark Survival Evolved was an interesting addition to the large selection of multiplayer survival games on the market at the time. Its unique dinosaur-themed setting and expansive open world helped it to compete with the titans of the genre like Rust or The Forest, but ultimately the game received a lot of mixed reviews due to its grindy nature and tediously punishing gameplay. Despite this, the recent reveal of the sequel has still been met with resounding approval from the fans, and this is not just because Vin Diesel is part of the project for some reason. The main reason people are excited about Ark 2 is that it has the potential to remedy the problems the original game had. If the issues of difficulty and unnecessary grinding are addressed, Ark could once again dominate the survival game scene and become the ultimate time consumer for friends looking to tame some dinosaurs and throw poop at each other. A surprising aspect is that the game will have a single player mode. With Hollywood stars taking on the roles of Ark 2's protagonists, the sequel could include an actual storyline, something that wasn't really the case in the original. Number 3. Dead Island 2. When the first trailer for Dead Island 2 came out more than 8 years ago, it went down in history as one of the greatest teasers for a game that was never going to come out. Now, Dead Island 2 is about to make history again with the most unexpected yet highly anticipated comeback in the world of gaming. The long silence following the initial trailer has become a double-edged sword for the game's upcoming release. On the one hand, the wait has created a massive hype for Dead Island 2, and on the other hand, well, it's created a lot of hype for Dead Island 2 and therefore skyrocketing expectations. If the game fails to meet those expectations, its grand return might just be as short as it is sudden. However, if the recently released gameplay footage is anything to go by, the game does include a lot of interesting new mechanics such as locational body damage and realistic dismemberment. The new features make for a beautifully gory spectacle which, let's be honest, is what most people look for in a good zombie game. Number 2. Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine 2. Warhammer 40k Space Marine is a 2011 third-person shooter that, for the longest time, was the most faithful and engrossing recreation of the wargame setting. Since then, there have been a lot of other 40k-inspired games that could claim the title, however none of them have blended the elements of hack and slash and shooter gameplay like Space Marine. For this reason, the recent announcement of the sequel has generated a lot of interest. After more than 10 years, Space Marine is finally coming back with brand new graphics and refined combat mechanics, continuing the story right from where it left off. Naturally, this is a dream come true for the fans of the first game, but the sequel is in a good position to attract some new players as well. With Darktide having a somewhat rocky release last year, Space Marine 2 is the perfect replacement for those who seek to shed some blood in a dark and gritty sci-fi setting, especially since the sequel is complete with its very own co-op campaign just like Darktide. And number 1, Armored Core 6: Fires of Rubicon. Armored Core is a series of mech combat games developed by From Software. The franchise was established in '97 and helped the studio gain a considerable following even before they began working on their critically acclaimed Souls series. Although Armored Core has its own dedicated fanbase, the games have never reached mainstream appeal due to a complicated mech building system and overwhelming combat mechanics. The last Armored Core game came out in 2012 and received mixed reviews for this very reason. The announcement of Armored Core 6 coming out this year is a huge deal for the future of the series. The teaser for the game was great, which combined with the renown From Software possesses in the gaming industry nowadays could not only revive the franchise but also help it find a more mainstream audience. However, the success of its grand return will obviously be dependent on whether or not Armored Core 6 can tackle the issue of accessibility for new players. Considering the legions of dedicated FromSoft fans who will at the very least give this a try, it needs to be able to embrace its modern place in the industry without losing what made it great. franchises. And that's the list. Let us know what you thought of this video down in the comments below. Which of these franchises are you most looking forward to the return of? And of course, let us know of any others that we didn't include. Make sure you like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe and hit that notification bell. Head over to WhatCulture.com for more content every day. I've been Cy for WhatCulture, and have a good week.